Hi, I'm Milton Rendell and welcome to Real News Friday. Look, market continues to tick along, roughly still about the same amount of sales, sort of around that 800 mark. Now, stock levels is an interesting one. Amount of stock that we have on the market at the moment in terms of sales is 3,419. Now, compare that to a month ago, that's down about 14.5%. So it's sort of a bit of a dip, but it's interesting comparing it to say a year ago. And that last year, in the same period of time, the listing numbers were 3,286. So we're probably following a similar pattern, but the main difference, I suppose, is the amount of time it's taking to sell. So 12 months ago, the figures that were released, I was saying average properties on the market for about 8 days. At the moment it's 12, so there is a change there. So I don't know how that affects those numbers, but it is a 50% increase in time, so that's an interesting one. In terms of properties on the market for rent, 2,459, that's down about 4.2% compared to a year ago. So there's probably two factors to that. It's probably one is a number of owners have sold out, and again, people may be returning back to the to renting, but I would suggest it's probably more about properties being sold than anything else. Properties for sale, it's an interesting breakdown. If you have a look at this sort of number that we've got at the moment, the number of houses on the market is 1,977. Units is about 821, and land is 621. So basically there's about 57.8% of the properties on the market are houses, but the interesting statistic in terms of sales is that the last week of sales, it was 72% of the properties sold were houses. So that's going to suggest to me that possibly we're going to run short of houses. I might be wrong, but it's an interesting stat to compare. Last week's sales, about 17% were units, and the balance, which is about 10%, was land. So land's still the lower one in selling, but certainly houses are still clicking along, and that's a bit of a concern in that ratio that I just spoke about. Like I said, last year 3,289 properties on the market. So we're following a similar pattern. So what I was really interested to see what happened last year, sort of between July and October. And the interesting figure is that we actually had a bit of an explosion of properties that came on the market from July to October. In fact, the number of properties went up by about 62%. So if that's the case, and if it follows a similar pattern, we will probably see properties coming on the market probably in August and September and into October. That's generally because the people are aiming to be settled and sold and moved by the end of the year. Let's see if that pattern continues. I look forward to speaking to you again next week.